Hi my dear students, and I wish you are doing great. In today's session we are going to continue explaining what I mean by linguistic appropriateness when you translate from English into Arabic or from Arabic into English. In our previous session we discussed cohesion and coherence and how to achieve coherence and cohesion. And also, we discussed how to maintain linguistic appropriateness by differentiating between two main elements. The first is linguistic competence, and the second was the translational competence. And we said, in order to get a good translation, you should keep in mind that your translation should be natural, should be communicative, should be accurate, and most importantly, should be communicative. But how can we achieve these four elements? This is a topic that we are going to go into depth today. So, our main focus today will be how to perfect your translation, how to make your translation a good one, and how to beautify your text. But before going into the objectives of this lesson, we need to find out a good translation for this sentence. Flu is safer than AIDS. How can we translate it? What do you think? You can of course pause this video and attempt translating this sentence. So, flu is safer than AIDS. Of course, a good translation, or someone might say, flu الإنفلونزا أكثر أمانا من الإيدز، مرض الإيدز، مرض نقص المناعة المكتسبة. So here this translation is a literal one. Flu is safer than AIDS, so safer أكثر safe أمانا than من الAIDS. So, is this a good translation? Of course not. This is not a good translation, although it's an accurate one. While an accurate and communicative and natural translation can go like this. الإنفلونزا أقل خطرا من الإيدز. So this now is a good translation. Why? Because if we say الإنفلونزا أكثر أمانا من الإيدز, it means we have some safety in getting flu, which is untrue. So here, as long as both of them are some kind of diseases, so we don't have any kind of safety here. So one of them is أقل خطورة, right? So here we changed this modulation. We use modulation to translate this. Why? Because the translation of the text must be as accurate as possible to the meaning embedded in or included in the source text. So how can we get this translation and how can we avoid this translation? This is the main focus of our today's session. So what we are going to discuss today is number one, to identify the metaphor of a glass of two lenses. So any translator need a glass, just like sunglasses or an eyeglass. And this two glass has two lenses. And then we need to find out the differences between two main processes. The first is editing and proofreading. What do you mean by a translator must edit 1, 2 to proofread his text. And 3, we need to find out the differences between a good translation and not a good one. And we need to know how to practice editing and proofreading any text. What should I keep in mind while doing this process? And what should I do while proofreading my text? And also we need to find out the steps that we go into while we translate from English into Arabic or from Arabic into English. So a translation process could be summed up in 3 processes. Number 1, reading. 2, drafting. 3, revising. When we read a text, I mean, you need to understand, you need to take in, and of course to comprehend all the content of this text. What is it about? What is the text type? And what are the problems involved in this text? Do we have any lexical problems, syntactic problems, grammatical problems, or meaning related problems? And then after you're done with the first stage, you need to go into the drafting stage. In this case, you are going to, or in this step, you are going to make your rough draft of the text. So you are transferring ideas and you are choosing the suitable strategy. As long as we divide the text into 3 main types, an informative text, an expressive one, or an operative one, so you should keep in mind what is the appropriate strategy for translating this text. And after you're done with your draft, you need to focus on your draft. So you need to proofread your text and you need to edit your text. And in proofreading and editing, we have minor steps and we have complex, major, macro steps. So we need to find out again what are the differences. Of course, we have in our previous session discussed this step and with its 2 main elements, the content, how to get the content by doing some kind of text analysis. And we said, how can we do text analysis? By reviewing the content, by reviewing who did what, by reviewing the communicative aspects involved in the text, by reviewing the text type, by reviewing the formality level, by reviewing the tense, and of course cohesion and coherence, and the problems in this text, whether they are lexical, word related, or syntactic ones, or grammatical related ones, or meaning ones. And also we go, in fact, we went into detail of discussing this second stage, which is drafting, how to transfer your ideas by using, of course, the appropriate strategy, whether your translation should be as close as possible to the source text information, or you should somehow find a matching style, or you are going to rewrite your text and you have to transfer your ideas. And in today, our main focus will be on this stage. So we need to find out the differences between proofreading and editing. What is proofreading? As we said at the very beginning, one of the objectives in this text is to familiarize all translation students of 2 main lenses that he needs or she needs to get while translating, or while revising his product. So the 2 lenses are editing, you have to edit your text, and the other one is proofreading. So editing, it's a kind of zooming out. So you need to find out the full picture, the bigger one. While proofreading, you need to zoom in, you need to be much more focused. You have to go into minor details. So, editing is looking at the big picture by comparing the source text and the translation. So while you are doing editing, you have of course made your first draft of the text. So after you're done with your draft, you need to compare the source text with the target text, with your draft. Why? You need to look at word choice. Have you chosen the word appropriately? And is your draft clear? And terminology. Have you caught all the terminology involved? And consistency. Is the text consistent? Are the information consistent? Or is the information consistent with each other, or contextualized items? And we are going to go into contextualized items and how to achieve clarity and consistency. So, an editor attempts to answer two main questions. Number one, does the translation accurately convey the meaning of the source text? Do we have the same meaning included in the source text? Two, does the translation use the appropriate terminology and the style in the source text? So, if this is editing, so what is proofreading? If editing is looking at the big picture, proofreading is like getting out the magnifying glass and doing a careful inspection. So you need to go into detail in your investigation of the text components. At this stage, the goal is to clean up the text. The source text is completely forgotten, and the translated text must stand on its own. So in this stage, you have already compared the source text with the target text in your editing stage. But in proofreading stage, your eyes will only be on your draft. So you are going to forget totally about the source text, because you have already compared the information involved in the source text with the information involved in the draft. So in your proofreading, you will try to beautify your draft. You have to make it accurate, you have to make it natural, and you have to make it communicative. So if the editor looks at the clarity, the meanings, the information involved, a proofreader looks at the style, the contextualized item, collocations and the idioms, of course, mechanics, spelling, capitalization, and punctuation, sentence structure. Do we have any problems with the sentence, run-on sentences, or do we have comma splice or sentence fragments? And also, as long as we have so many problems with choosing the correct and appropriate text tense in English, so you need to pay some attention to tenses, their form and their uses. And of course we have subject-verb agreement and article, and in Arabic we have hamazat. And also you need to keep in mind that in some point we need to be much more explicit and in others we need to be implicit. We need to add and we need to be concise. So, what should be done? What should you do while you translate any text? Is that after you're done with drafting, you need to compare your translation with the original. Why? Because you need to check it for accuracy. Do you have the same information or not? So, you need to rewrite any part that doesn't flow well in the Arabic or English text. After all, and after that, you have to proofread the entire document for mechanical or formatting errors. So, how can you tell whether your translation is a good one or a bad one? Of course, we have two main elements, as we repeatedly explain this part of the translational studies. We have translation competence, and in translation competence we need linguistic competence, your knowledge of the language, and overall performance. How do we use the knowledge of the language to, and how can we translate this text accordingly? So, what is a bad translation? Your translation will be bad if you have some of these problems. If the meaning of the source text is not fully communicated in the bad translation. So, if the meaning of the source text is not being communicated, your translation will be bad one. Is a bad one. If your style is clumsy, is not understood, and if you are shifting among text type, if you are using the strategy of the informative with the strategy with the expressive, and together with the strategy of the operative, so your translation is a bad one. It doesn't follow together if your text or if the information involved in your text doesn't follow together, and if this information has frequent, awkward, and oddly placed elements. So they are not well connected, they are not progressing logically. And if you have numerous word choice that are formal and informal or colloquial for the target text, and if you have a lot of errors or mistakes that reveal some kind of lack of control of the grammar or spelling or punctuation. So if you have any of these, your translation is not a good one. But what is a good translation? A good translation is, or wherein the meaning involved in the source text is masterfully communicated in a good translation. Also, the word choice is skillful and apt for the target text. Also, it shows a masterful control of the target grammar, spelling, and punctuation. And most importantly, the naturality element, it reads smoothly. And its style is idiomatic and appropriate. And it demonstrates able and creative solution to translational problems according to their text types. So, we can sum up that translation process into three-step process. So here we need to read the text to understand the content. You need to draft, you need to translate, And after you're done with your translation, you must go into the revision stage, which involve editing, looking at the big pictures and comparing both the target and the source, and proofreading to look at the final version alone to make sure it is mistake free. So let's have one practice. Here we have this text: لقد حظيت الثروة السمكية بقدر كبير من اهتمام الدولة لأهمية هذا القطاع ودوره البارز في توفير الغذاء لأبناء هذا البلد. ولا تزال الثروة السمكية تشكل ركيزة من ركائز التنمية الاقتصادية لما تتمتع به من موارد متجددة، خاصة في ظل إدارة واعية وعلمية لهذا المورد الذي حافظ على استدامة مساهمته في إجمالي الناتج المحلي، وتوفير فرص العمل لقطاع هام من السكان ومن العاملين في الأنشطة الإنتاجية والخدمية المرتبطة بهذا القطاع. So this is an Arabic text, and as you know, all of it, it's just one sentence, that's why it's too long. So you need to go through the 3 stages, or the 3 steps that we have already mentioned, to read, to draft, and to revise. So let's go into the first one, which is to read the text. This text discusses a topic related to ثروة السمكية, and it highlights the importance of this sector and why the state should pay much attention to this sector, because it's a kind of توفير الغذاء لأبناء هذا البلد. So this text is not about any other topics except something that has to do with fish and fisheries. So we need to divide this text. Here we have the problems. We have some lexical problems. We need to find out what do we mean by the ثروة السمكية. We need to find out التنمية الاقتصادية, and we need to find out ركيزة من ركائز التنمية الاقتصادية. We need to find out إدارة واعية. What do we mean by this? And we need to find out what do we mean by أنشطة إنتاجية وخدمية. And also we have some grammatical problems which lies in one of these problems is dividing this text into translatable units. So we need to divide this text into units. So I remember when I said what is a unit is a complete sentence, a sentence that has a complete idea, and we have subject, verb, and object or complement. So this is the simplest form of a sentence in English. Of course, we have simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences in English, but let's go for the simple one. So a draft of this text, after looking up all the unfamiliar words and dividing this text into units, could be this one. So here, for example, the translator tried to be as close as the original. The information is stated in the source text because it's a kind of informative text. So let's find out here what the translation did and how did he make his first draft. So let's read his translation. Fisheries have received much attention from the state for the role they play in food security for the citizen of this country. Additionally, they remain one of the basic milestones for achieving economic developments in the country, especially in the light of good management for this resource that sustain its contribution to the national income and creating jobs for a great number of citizens, as well as those working in service and production activities related to this sector. So again, this is a draft of this text, which is a draft that contains many problems. That's why after we are done with the draft stage, we need to go into the final stage, which is revising your draft. Because here we have a lot of problems. One of these problems, for example, is this one. Fisheries have received. Here we have a grammar problem, right? Because have or has is followed by the past participle. So this is a problem. Must be received, right? So fisheries have received much attention from the state for the role they play in food security for the citizens of this country. And here we have a run-on sentence. We need here a full stop, right? Because this is a compound sentence, because we have a coordinating conjunction. So here we have one sentence and another, and they are connected by for, because. So this is again a complete unit, so we need a full stop. And after this conjunction, we need a comma, right? So we have a lot of problems. So you need to keep in mind that in your revision stage, you should go into proofreading and editing. In editing, you need to compare this text with this, the information involved in here with the information involved in here, and then you need to go into the proofreading stage. So here, let's compare first the information involved in this text. So here we have لقد حظيت الثروة السمكية بقدر كبير من اهتمام الدولة. Fishery have received much attention from the state for the role they play in food security for the citizen of this country. So do we have the same meaning? Of course, yes. So because if we do some kind of back translation, we'll get the same meaning. Let's translate this back into Arabic and find out whether we have the same meaning or not. So fisheries, الثروة السمكية قد تلقت اهتماما كثيرا من الدولة بسبب الدور الذي لعبته they, fisheries, plural, في security, في تأمين الغذاء للمواطنين في هذا البلد. Do we have the same meaning? Of course. So this is a good transferring of the first sentence. And then let's compare the second one. ولا تزال الثروة السمكية تشكل ركيزة من ركائز التنمية الاقتصادية لما تتمتع به من موارد متجددة خاصة في ظل إدارة واعية وعلمية لهذا المورد. Additionally, they, yes of course, they, and remains one of the basic milestones for achieving economic developments in the country. So let's pause here and find out, do we have the same translation, the same meaning involved in the source text or not. They remain وتظل هذه الموارد واحدة من أساسيات أو دعائم الأساسية لتحقيق التنميات الاقتصادية في هذا البلد. خاصة, do we have في هذا البلد? No. So we need to delete this after comparing, of course. خاصة ولا سيما. خاصة, yes. خاصة in light of good management for this resource that sustain its contribution to the national income. خاصة في ظل إدارة واعية. في ظل, in light of, في ضوء إدارة واعية, good translation. And instead of saying واعية وعلمية, we could say a good translation which contains both of them. So this is a good one, or we could say a good and a suitable management for this resource that sustain its contribution to the national income. Yes, national income. So here وتوفير إدارة واعية تقوم على حاجتين: استدامة المساهمة وتوفير فرص العمل and creating jobs for a great number of citizens لقطاع من السكان as well as those working in service and production activities related to this sector المرتبطة بهذا القطاع. So again, in the editing, which is looking at the bigger picture, I guess the source text and the target text are very similar to each other, right? Because here we compare the source text with the target text, the meaning of course involved with the source and the target. So let's go to the second stage, which is the editing stage. In the editing stage here, we have a problem with received, right? And we have fixed it because have must be followed by the past participle. And also here, we need a full stop because this is a compound sentence, so the meaning is complete. And we need also a comma after additionally, and they remain. So if you have look back at this text, we have they remains. So this is a subject-verb agreement problem. So they remain one of the basic milestones for achieving economic development. So economic development, we don't need the S, of course. In the country is an extra information that we don't need because it is understood again, especially in light of good management for this resource that sustains. Again, sustains here subject-verb agreement, that is a subject, and that refers back to a resource, which is a singular, so we need here subject-verb agreement to its contribution, sustains its contribution to the national income, and of course we need and creating jobs for, so this is a good one, and creating jobs for a great number of citizens as well as those working in service so we need this, and also we need this one. So after we're done with this, we have fixed almost all the spelling problem, the subject-verb agreement, the sentence problem, the meaning problem. We deleted any extra information, and let's read this text to make sure that is accurate, that is natural, and most importantly that it is communicative. So fisheries have received much attention from the state for the role they play in food security for the citizens of this country. Additionally, they remain one of the basic milestones for achieving economic development, especially in light of good management for this resource that sustains its contribution to the national income and creating jobs for a great number of citizens as well as those working in service and production activities related to this sector. So again, you need to keep in mind that some of the recurrent translation problems are contextualized terms, sentence splitting, cohesion and coherence, and collocation. And this will be discussed in detail in our next session, which will be Linguistic Appropriateness 3. But now let's go to your assignment. So your assignment will be this text to translate Sulaiman's head wins the match. This is a sport text because, as you know, in this week we are going to go into some sport related text. So here is the text. Which is Sulaiman header helps Ahli overcome Ismaili in Egyptian league. So we need to find out the problems in here. What do you mean by Egyptian league? What is a good translation of this word? Ahli claimed their 7th successive win in the Egyptian league on Thursday when they defeated Ismaili 1-0 at Al Max Stadium in Alexandria. Substitute winger Walid Sulaiman came off the bench to score the winner 10 minutes after replacing striker Marwan Mohsen in the 68th minute. Thursday win helped Al Ahly cement their place at the top of the league table with 21 points, 5 points ahead of the second placed Ittihad of Alexandria, who played one match more. Ahly were forced to make several modifications in their squad as team star Ramadan Sobhi, veteran fullback Ahmed Fathi, midfielder Amr Sulaya missed all the game due to different injuries. Both sides were cautious, opting for controlling the midfield without making any threat in the rest of the first half. The second half was different as Al Ahly intensified their attacks in order to open the scoring. Striker Marwan Mohsen received a nice pass from the winger Ahmed Sheikh, but his effort was denied by Ismaili keeper Mohamed Megji. In the 56 minutes, 3 minutes later, Al Ahly's keeper Mohamed Shinawi blocked a nice header from Silva with a heroic save. So this will be your text for translation. So what I need you to do is to attempt translating this text and try to proofread and to make sure that you have got all the elements involved in this text. And I also need to keep saying that you have to submit all your assignments on time because all of them will be graded. And that's it for today. So in today's session we know what are the two lenses that you need to keep in mind while you are translating, and we said what is a good translation, what is not a good translation, and we find the differences between editing, which is looking at the bigger picture wherein we compare the source text with the target text, and proofreading. And also we practice editing and proofreading a text, and we explain the steps involved in translation, which are read, translate, and revise. So that's it for today. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.